All right, so the Mongolian deathworm, huh? You're in the right place. Let's take a deep dive into this, shall we?
It's good to meet.
I think most people, when they hear Mongolian deathworm, they probably picture, well, I don't know, a giant worm.
Right.
But it's a little more complicated than that, isn't it?
Yeah, a little. I mean, it gets its name from its appearance.
Right.
But it's not really a worm, not in the traditional sense. And the death part, well, that's where the legend gets really interesting.
Exactly. Okay, so first things first. Where are we, like, geographically?
Ah, yes. The Gobi Desert. One of the most extreme environments on Earth, I'd say. Scorching hot days.
Right.
Freezing nights. Vast stretches of rocky terrain, sand dunes.
Yeah, those sand dunes.
It's really the kind of place that pushes life to its limits.
So maybe it's not so surprising that a place like that would give rise to, well, some pretty wild stories.
I think that's a good way to put it.
So let's talk about this deathworm then. Where does this legend even come from?
Well, it's been around for centuries, actually. Passed down through generations of Mongolian nomadic herders. They call it the Algoi Korkoi, which basically means intestine worm.
Intestine worm. Okay, not the most appealing name.
Not exactly, no.
But it kind of paints a picture, doesn't it?
I guess it does, yeah. Like a 2 to 5 foot long, bright red.
Oh, wow, it's red.
Yeah, bright red. And it really does supposedly look like, well, a cow's intestine.
So no head, no tail, just
this fleshy tube.
Okay, that's a little creepy, I'm not gonna lie.
Right.
But so far, we're just talking about a weird-looking worm.
Right.
What makes this thing the deathworm?
This is where those legends I mentioned really come in. Locals say it can spit venom, for one.
Spit venom? Like a cobra?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. There are even stories that it can deliver electric shocks.
Whoa, hold on. Electric shocks. In the desert? Come on, how's that even possible?
Oh, I know, it sounds pretty out there, right?
Yeah.
But think about it, electric eels can generate a powerful jolt underwater.
Yeah, but that's underwater. This is the Gobi Desert. We're talking about, like, the opposite of water.
That's true, but the point is, the ability to generate electricity isn't entirely unheard of in the animal kingdom.
All right, I'll give you that. But still, spitting venom, electric shocks, it all sounds a little far-fetched, don't you think?
Sure. I mean, we haven't even gotten to the part where some people say even touching this thing can kill you.
Seriously?
Yeah, there are some stories claiming that its venom is so potent it can dissolve flesh on contact.
Okay, now that's just terrifying. All right, so we've got this creepy, potentially deadly creature lurking in the Gobi Desert. Has anyone actually ever seen this thing?
Well, there have been numerous expeditions to find the death worm.
Really? People actually go looking for this thing?
Oh, yeah. One of the most well-known was led by a Czech cryptozoologist named Ivan Mackerel.
Cryptozoologist, so like someone who studies hidden or unknown animals?
Exactly.
Okay, so what did this Ivan Mackerel guy find?
Well, he tried all sorts of things. Used ground vibrating machines to try and lure it out, interviewed locals, experimented with different baits.
Yeah.
No conclusive evidence.
So nothing. So maybe this thing is just a myth, a story, right?
Well, absence of evidence doesn't always mean evidence of absence, right?
It's true. It's a big desert out there.
Exactly. And the worm is only said to appear during the hottest, driest months.
So it's possible it spends most of its time underground.
Yeah, maybe deep underground, emerging only in very specific conditions. That would make it incredibly difficult to find.
That makes sense, I guess. So even with all these expeditions coming up empty, there's still a chance, however small, that this thing could be out there.
I wouldn't rule it out completely, no.
Okay, I like your style. So even if it's a long shot, what are we looking at here? A totally new species, some kind of weird mutation. What could this death worm actually be?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
I guess it is. But hey, that's what we're here for, right? To try and figure this thing out.
Right. And to do that, I think we need to look beyond just the physical evidence, or lack thereof. We need to consider the cultural context.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that earlier. This legend has been passed down for generations. So it's not just a scary story, right? It's got to be more to it than that.
There's definitely a deeper cultural significance here. And to understand that, we need to look at the Gobi itself, not just as a place, but as a force that shaped the lives and beliefs of the people who live there.
Okay, now you've got me really intrigued. So tell me, what's so special about the Gobi Desert? What does it represent to the Mongolian people? And how does this death worm fit into all of that?
Well, that's a great question. And I think to answer it, we need to take a step back and really consider the Gobi, not just as a landscape, but as a character in this story.
A character, huh? I like that. So let's dive into that then. What's the Gobi's role in all of this?
Well, for the nomadic herders who've lived there for centuries, the Gobi isn't just a backdrop. It's a powerful entity. It demands respect, caution. It trusts them, pushes them to their limits, and it reminds them constantly that their survival depends on understanding its rhythms and dangers.
So it's like this harsh, unforgiving environment that shapes not only the land itself, but also the people who live there.
Exactly. And the death worm, this terrifying creature, well, it's almost like an embodiment of those dangers, a physical manifestation of the Gobi's harshness and unpredictability.
So it's like a warning sign then, a way of saying, hey, this place is dangerous, watch your step.
Think of it as a cautionary tale, woven into the very landscape. The death worm legend could be a way to teach practical, potentially life-saving lessons about the Gobi.
Like don't travel alone at night, or stay away from certain areas during the hottest months.
Exactly. It's a cultural survival mechanism, passed down through generations to ensure their continued existence in this challenging environment.
Wow, that's fascinating. It's not just a scary story, it's a way to teach valuable lessons about how to survive in the Gobi. But let's say, just for the sake of argument, that the death worm isn't real. Does that mean the legend is any less significant to the Mongolian people?
Not at all. The power of a story doesn't always depend on its literal truth. Myths and legends often serve a deeper purpose. They reflect the culture's values, anxieties, their relationship with the natural world.
So the death worm, real or not, speaks to the Mongolian people's understanding of the Gobi and their place within it.
Exactly. And that's what makes these stories so fascinating to study. They offer us a glimpse into different ways of seeing and experiencing the world.
I see what you mean. So even if it's not a real creature, it's still a real part of their cultural identity.
Right, it's part of their folklore, their way of making sense of the world around them.
Okay, so we've got this incredible legend, this creature that embodies the harsh realities of the Gobi Desert. We've got expeditions searching for physical evidence and scientific attempts to explain its abilities. And now we've got this cultural significance, the way it reflects a society's relationship with its environment.
And what's really interesting is that the Mongolian death worm sits right at the intersection of all of those things, science and folklore, the tangible and intangible.
Yeah, it's like this perfect blend of mystery and reality.
Exactly. And it really makes us confront the limits of our knowledge. It forces us to grapple with the possibility that there are still things out there that we just can't easily explain.
It's like that feeling you get when you watch a good horror movie, you know? Part of you wants to believe, but then there's that other part that's like, come on, this is just a movie.
Right, but there's still that little voice in the back of your head that wonders, what if?
What if? Yeah, that's a good way to put it. But realistically speaking, what would it take to prove or disprove the existence of this thing? I mean, do you think we'll ever have a definitive answer?
Well, technology is always advancing. And with those advancements come new possibilities for exploration and discovery.
Okay, so what are we talking about here? Like drones with cameras flying over the desert?
That's one possibility. Drones equipped with high-resolution cameras and thermal imaging, combing the Gobi from above. Imagine that.
Yeah, that would be pretty incredible. But what about, like, DNA evidence? Could we find traces of the death worm without actually seeing it?
It's possible. Think about advanced DNA analysis techniques that allow us to detect traces of unknown creatures in the environment. We can find its DNA signature in the sand or something like that.
Whoa, that's some serious science fiction stuff right there.
It is, but it's not that far-fetched anymore. There's also ground-penetrating radar, which could be used to detect underground burrows or movements.
And we could use that to track the death worm.
Potentially, yes. Or we could even use remote sensors to monitor seismic activity, vibrations that might indicate something large moving beneath the surface.
So you're saying with the right technology, we could find evidence of the death worm without ever laying eyes on it?
It's definitely within the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the technology itself, it's about the people using it.
What do you mean?
We need researchers who understand both the science and the cultural context. People who can navigate the Gobi's challenges and interpret the data they collect.
Right, so you need people who know what they're looking for. People who understand the legends, the stories, the history.
Absolutely.
It's like you can have all the fancy gadgets in the world, but without the right people, it's all just a bunch of data points, right?
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, a little bit of that old-fashioned explorer's intuition wouldn't hurt either.
I like that, a little bit of intuition. So where do we go from here? I mean, we've talked about the legend, the science, the culture. What's the next step in unraveling this mystery?
Well, I think the key is to keep an open mind, to keep exploring, keep asking questions. The Mongolian deathworm is a reminder that there's still so much we don't know about our world. And that's a good thing. It's a call to adventure, a challenge to push the boundaries of our knowledge.
I like that, a challenge to push the boundaries. So, to everyone listening out there, if you're fascinated by the unknown, by creatures that defy explanation, don't give up on the search. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and who knows, maybe one day, the mystery of the Mongolian deathworm will finally be solved.
I hope so. It would be an incredible discovery.
I agree. And hey, even if we never find definitive proof, the search itself is worth it. After all, isn't the journey just as important as the destination?
I'd say so. The Mongolian deathworm, whether it's real or not, has already sparked our imaginations and challenged our understanding of the world. And that's something truly special.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that there's still magic and mystery out there waiting to be discovered. And that's something worth celebrating.
I couldn't agree more.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah, we have.
But we've only just scratched the surface of this fascinating topic. So be sure to join us next time as we continue our deep dive into the world of the Mongolian deathworm.
I'll be here.
Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop believing in the power of the unknown.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, so the Gobi. It's more than just like a setting for this story, right?
Right. More than just a backdrop.
You're saying it's a character.
I think so, yeah. A powerful entity. For those nomadic herders, the ones who've lived there for, centuries? The Gobi, it demands respect. Caution, even.
It tests them.
It does.
Wait,
pushes them to their limits. It's a constant reminder that their survival, it depends on understanding the Gobi, its rhythms, its dangers.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. So the deathworm, this terrifying creature, it's like it represents those dangers.
I think so. A physical manifestation of that harshness. The Gobi's unpredictability.
So it's kind of like a warning then, like, hey, be careful out here.
Yeah, you could see it that way. A cautionary tale. Built into the landscape, like a built-in survival mechanism for the people who live there.
Wow, that's actually pretty clever when you think about it. So it's not just a scary story, it's a way to teach people how to survive in this really tough environment.
That's one way to interpret it. And it's been passed down for generations. That says something, right?
It does. But, let's just play devil's advocate for a second. Let's say the deathworm isn't real. Does that make the legend any less important to the Mongolian people?
I don't think so. Not at all, really. I mean, a story's power doesn't always rely on it being literally true, does it?
I guess not.
Myths, legends, they often have a deeper meaning. Reflecting values, maybe anxieties, a culture's relationship with nature.
So the deathworm, whether it's real or not, it still says something about how the Mongolian people view the Gobi, their place in it.
Exactly. And that's what makes these stories so fascinating, so worth studying. They give us a window into how other cultures see the world, how they experience it, their relationship to nature.
It's like the deathworm might seem totally bizarre to us, like something out of a movie, but for the Mongolian people, it's part of their lives, woven into their history.
It's a part of who they are, their folklore, their way of making sense of the world.
So we've got this amazing legend, right? A creature that represents this harsh, unforgiving desert. We've got expeditions searching for proof, scientists trying to explain its abilities, and now we've got this whole cultural aspect to consider too.
And the Mongolian deathworm, it sits right at the center of all that. Science, folklore, the tangible and intangible. It's a challenge, really. It makes us question what we know, what we think is possible.
Yeah, and it plays on that human desire to believe in something bigger than ourselves, something mysterious and unknown.
It's that what-if factor, right? The possibility that there might be creatures out there that completely change our understanding of biology, of what nature is capable of.
Okay, so I have to ask, what would it actually take to prove or disprove the existence of this thing? Like, is there anything that would convince the skeptics, the scientists?
Well, technology is always evolving.
Right.
And that opens up new ways to explore, to make discoveries. Imagine drones, for instance.
Drones, like the ones people use to take pictures?
Sure, but imagine them equipped with high-resolution cameras, thermal imaging, We could scan the goby from above, see things we've never seen before.
Okay, that's pretty cool. But what about like a scientific approach, something more concrete?
Well, there's DNA analysis, for example.
Right.
We're getting to the point where we can detect traces of unknown creatures just from environmental samples.
So we could find the death worm's DNA even without seeing it.
Possibly, yeah. Imagine finding its genetic signature right there in the sand. That would be pretty convincing evidence.
That would be huge. But even then, some people might still be skeptical.
That's true. But there are other possibilities, too. Ground-penetrating radar, for example. That could help us detect underground burrows, movements.
So we could track it.
Potentially, yeah. We could even use sensors, the kind that monitor seismic activity. Pick up vibrations that could indicate a large creature moving underground.
So like a death worm earthquake?
Something like that. The point is, with the right technology and the right approach, we might be able to find evidence of the death worm without ever actually seeing it.
That's pretty amazing. It's like we're on the verge of a whole new era of exploration. And the Mongolian death worm, it could be the key to unlocking all sorts of new discoveries.
It very well could be.
So we're like moving into this whole new world of exploration then, like a high-tech treasure hunt almost.
It is kind of like that, yeah.
I mean, forget shovels and compasses, right? We're talking drones, DNA sequencers, all these crazy sensors.
It's pretty amazing the technology we have now.
But we still need, like, boots on the ground, don't we? Like, actual people out there in the Gobi.
Oh, absolutely. The technology's great, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But it's only as good as the people using it.
Right.
We need researchers who understand the science, sure, but also the culture.
Yeah, the context.
Exactly. People who can deal with the Gobi, you know. It's a tough environment. And then they got to be able to interpret the data, make sense of it all.
It's like you need someone who can speak both languages, right? The language of science and the language of, I don't know, the Gobi.
I like that, speaking both languages.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
You know what's funny? We started out talking about this mythical creature, this like Mongolian monster.
Right.
And now we're talking about high-tech gadgets and cutting-edge science.
It's pretty wild, isn't it?
It's like science fiction meets, I don't know, Indiana Jones or something.
I see what you mean.
But that's what's so cool about cryptozoology, right?
Yeah.
It pushes us to think differently, to question what we think we know, to like embrace the possibility that there's still so much out there that we just haven't discovered yet.
I think that's a good definition of it, yeah. Embracing the possibility.
So to all of you listening, what's the takeaway here? Is the Mongolian death worm real? I mean, we've looked at the evidence, or lack thereof. We talked about the science, the culture, the whole 9 yards. But in the end, the answer's still out there.
It is. Still a mystery.
And maybe that's part of the appeal, you know? The mystery. The not knowing.
It definitely keeps things interesting.
The Mongolian death worm, whether it's real or just a story, it forces us to think critically, to weigh the evidence, and maybe most importantly, to stay open to the wonders of the world, you know? The things that we can't always explain.
It's a good reminder that there's still so much out there that we don't know.
Exactly. There's still magic out there. Mystery. And I think that's something worth holding on to.
Definitely.
All right, well, that about wraps it up for us.
Yeah, I think so.
Thanks for tuning in to this deep dive on the Mongolian death worm. We hope you enjoyed it. And who knows, maybe one of you listening out there will be the one to finally solve this mystery. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop believing in the unknown.
Well said.